Hey guys, this is Nurse Howie and I wanted to talk to you today about my first night shift as an ICU staff RN. I first came into the shift and I was really nervous, but we had orientation for about a week and a half before that. Basically, we just went over a lot of PowerPoint, talked to human resources, we got introduced to leadership, including the nurse educator and the nurse orientee, a couple of nurse specialists, and the CEO of the company. So I work for an ICU unit. It's a small ICU unit, roughly has only about 6 beds, but it's secluded from all the other beds and you have to get in with a password, so it's very private and it's very cliquish, I found, which I'm not actually very surprised about. In fact, I started having problems right when I walked into the unit. I mean, I came in 20 minutes early just to introduce myself before clocking in. I almost forgot to clock in because now that I'm a staff nurse over there at the ICU, I have to clock in. So it's not like a student or a rotate or a clinical rotation where you just go in and out. But once I got in, people were just looking at me as if, they probably didn't get the memo, or they knew somebody was coming but they didn't know it was me because it was night shift, so I never got to introduce myself prior to that. And so, of course, I took it upon my duty to introduce myself to every single staff member there first, and I got various reactions. A couple of people were like, "Whoa, who are you?" And most people were very friendly and they were like, "Oh, hey, nice to meet you. Where are you from? What have you done before? And how did you get here? Are you real staff or are you a traveler?" Stuff like that. My first real problem was about 5 to 10 minutes in, and apparently I didn't have a preceptor that the nurse educator has assigned me to, because usually they have their preceptors in the daytime. But they knew that I was going to work at the night as a night shift nurse, and so they wanted me to precept on the night. So they didn't see that it was such a problem, but I guess it was a problem because leadership is not there at nights, and so I get bounced around a lot. And for this particular night, the person that was supposed to precept me was not enjoying the idea of me being there, and that's fine. I mean, I've done enough clinical rotations in nursing school. If you've been there, I'm sure you know that you don't always get assigned to a nurse that's really all that thrilled for you to be there. So I took it with a grain of salt, but just the way this nurse said it, I mean, she legit had an eye patch, and she just kind of railed at me, not in a bad way, but she just kind of started escalating, like, "What? Where are you supposed to be? What's your experience?" And I told her that I had experience at this large academic teaching hospital, but it was just a temporary placement while I got to understand what it was like to work at the ICU so I can gain some critical care experience. And she said, "Well, we don't have that same equipment here, and you should really be somewhere else because this place is not the same. It's not the same. It's not the same." And I was like, "Oh, okay, thank you so much. I appreciate it." And I just kind of let her spew out whatever kind of vitriol she wanted to spew out. I mean, she wasn't rude about it, but she just really loud, really opposed. I just seemed like I thought for a second she was really opposed to me. But I found out from a lovely travel nurse who had been working there for a couple of years, in and out. So she knew about the unit culture, but she was lovely, and she was kind enough to take me in and adopted me that night. And as I started warming up to the unit, a couple of the other nurses were like, "Yeah, sorry about that first nurse. She really didn't want to precept you. She's kind of just like that. She's a very good nurse, though." And then I found out that she went straight down to the nursing supervisor floor and just insisted to give me to somebody else without even seeing me or talking to me. So I guess that's why I didn't really take it as personally, because she didn't see me, so she just was adamant about not having a preceptor orientee to precept an orientee at all. So that was that. But I made a new profile on Twitter. Check it out. It's Nurse Howie. My user handle is @HowieNurse, and when I put out when I put out a question about how I should be when I first get into the unit, a lot of the nurses there, most of them were ICU nurses, but a lot of them weren't. But some of them weren't. And I said, please, 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 if you're a senior nurse or even have just like 2 months more experience than me, let me know what your experience is and any tips on acclimating to the unit. And almost 90% of them said, don't make waves, sit and observe, and see how the culture of the unit is. And they were so right, you know. Right away, I could see which nurses were very good, skilled nurses, but at the same time, they had poor bedside manner. I mean, in particular, some of these nurses would tell personal stories and cuss at each other really loud, and it was about 3 a.m. And I know that we were told, I mean, everybody knows that, you know, like patients specifically in the ICU where alarms are ringing all the time, patients really don't have a lot of sleep, and that leads to a lot of delirium. But these senior nurses were just, no, you know, just like, oh, he effing did this and she effing did that, and you know, I don't know why that supervisor acted like that. That was the stupidest thing. Just really loud, and I could hear it all throughout the whole unit. So I can't imagine how patients were able to sleep. But I kept that to myself. Just gonna see where the unit is. I spent most of the time overlooking the shoulder of my preceptor. She asked if I had any questions, but I apologized to her because I couldn't form any questions yet because I was so brand new to the unit. It was not just overwhelming and trying to figure out where everything was and where all the passwords are and how to get into this supply room password, how to get into the computer password, and how to get into the med dispense, which is like a Pyxis password to give out medications, and what the routines are, what's policy and protocol and that's strictly adhered to, and which is more kind of like ignored, you know? So these are the things around the unit that I was trying to figure out. But there's a couple of quotes that I like that people, you know, like talk to me about, like, so as soon as I got into the unit, like no more than like 10 minutes in the unit, people would ask, you look young, are you supposed to be here? And this was from an RN that was the same age as me. Another one was, do you have enough experience to be here? Then this person just kept asking about my resume and my experience and where did I go to school and what did you learn there and how did you get to this unit? You know, they just don't hire anybody, blah, blah, blah. Another one was, are you working here, like full-time? Like, are you staff? Because they don't just let anybody in. And I was like, oh, I don't know what to say about that. So I said, I guess I'm here. You know, like basically with those kind of questions, I patronized them a little bit. I told them that I had a lot of experience working at the academic ICU, but it was only a temporary externship that I had to interview for, and I had ICU experience rotating. Sorry, where was I? Oh yeah, so, you know, for the people who are mostly just asking how I got there or what my experience was, just probably trying to figure out what my background was, I just gave them a quick spiel about how, you know, I had some experience at the neuro ICU at the large academic teaching hospital, and then I tempered that down with, but it was mostly, you know, all neuro patients, not the same kind of patients that are seen here, so I'm more than willing to learn. I know that I'm new, and I'm also a new grad, so anything you can teach me, I'd love to hear from it. You know, I'd love to hear from you. So I kind of spun that around to just let them know that I'm open to learning from them, because I was. And what's funny was that I even got nice insults like, you know, you're too smart and ambitious to be here. You should go someplace else, you know, that's more your level. Come back here when you're more ready to retire, you know? And I was like, what do I say to that? You know, it was hard for me to get this job. You know it, I've posted videos about it. It's been a year, you know, I took the NCLEX twice. I underestimated the first time, and then I studied hard, and I passed it, you know, very quickly the second time, and then trying to find the job wasn't as easy as I thought, let alone finding a job in the ICU. I even had to apply to the same position where I got experience from, and I still hadn't heard back. Apparently they had interviewed hundreds of people, and they only had one position open, so I'm still hoping for that, but I'm kind of settling in down to this ICU job. The reason why I got this ICU job was because of my previous couple of videos back where I said you have to keep hustling. So even though I was waiting for my dream ICU job, I still kept going on more ICU interviews, and eventually I got picked right away. So I got an offer, so I took it. I didn't want to like lay it over by the wayside. And now the more that I hang around here and look around the unit, I feel like it's more my fit. You know, it's not a fancy top tier academic hospital ICU, but it's a more of a smaller private ICU. But the nurses here have been working for like ICU nurses for like 20 years or more. I mean, they really know their stuff. And there's also a lot of people who are ambitious, and they seem to have a good click here. So I'm really hoping to get into that. But other than that, I wish that I had all my passwords in a row. I'm really glad I brought my notebook, and I'm glad that I stayed back and just kind of let the unit speak to me as far as culture goes. And in my downtime, I tried to stay busy. I did some computer modules that I was supposed to get done by 30 days, so I made sure to get that done. And just kind of, for now, tried to collect some questions that I could ask later, and then to kind of view and see how people did their routine and see when it was most busier in the unit versus when it was not. And thankfully, God, thank you, the unit was very smooth tonight, or last night. And but these patients, man, they're really, really sick physically, and it's terrible. And there's so many emotional stuff going on. Not as emotional as when I was working at the psychiatry ICU. Those were some sad, sad stories, but these patients also have sad stories, but their bodies are ravaged, man. They're ravaged, and I have some stories I'll talk to you guys about that too, but I have to get some rest and then figure out how to talk about them without revealing anything about the patient. So far, I'm really happy to be there. I felt like the night went smooth. I didn't have any crazy patients, and one sweet travel nurse was nice enough to show me around the unit and teach me the ropes. And I hope that I can acclimate to the unit more, and I can't wait to see what the rest of the shifts will show me. All right, thanks you guys for hanging around. Please subscribe to me, Nurse Howie, and my new Twitter is @HowieNurse, or you can look under nurse.howie, and my Instagram is @nurse.howie. So my Twitter is @HowieNurse, and my Instagram is @nurse.howie. Okay, all right, you guys. I will talk to you later. Thank you so much for supporting me, and I can't wait to hear from you guys. Comment down below, and I'll answer any questions that you have, or if you have any suggestions for me too. Okay, thanks. Bye. Good night.